Welcome to Short Story. I'm Mr. Story, and tonight I have something strange to share with you. Some stories fade with time. Others, they wait, quietly, for someone brave enough to uncover them. Tonight's tale comes from a quiet town in Texas, a town where no one speaks of what happened on a night when two children simply vanished. This is The Twins with Empty Eyes. Now, sit back, put on your headphones, and let the story begin. Chapter 1. Kevin. Kevin leaned back in his chair, one hand holding the phone, the other resting on his forehead, as if trying to push away the heaviness pressing against his temples. On the other end, the editor's voice was steady. "We need the manuscript by the end of the week, Kevin. You said last time it was 80% done, right?" Kevin let out a dry chuckle, his eyes gazing through the dusty glass window of the small cafe across the street. "Yeah, that's right. Just a few more chapters. I think next week should be fine." "Still horror?" "This time it's a little different. Something more personal." The call ended. Kevin turned off the phone, slid it into his coat pocket, and stepped out of the cafe. The town of Abilene greeted him with the crisp chill of early autumn and a quietness that felt almost suspicious. No car horns, no background noise, just the wind. And now and then, the sound of leaves falling onto the stone-paved road. He had moved here just a few days ago, a small town in Texas where people lived slowly and everything seemed to be held in the past. He rented a room in the old house of an elderly woman named Martha. The house sat quietly on the edge of town, with a small porch, faded white paint, and a backyard blanketed in dry leaves. He told people he was looking for writing inspiration, but in truth, he just wanted to escape. After the accident, after the woman he was about to marry died in an instant, Kevin felt like the world had collapsed. The sound of ambulance sirens still echoed somewhere in his memory. The smell of smoke, the flashing lights, the hand that slipped away. He hadn't written a single word in 3 months. And then he started walking, wandering without direction, until he arrived in Abilene. A small town where no one knows you, no one asks questions. Sounds good. Martha's house had something strange, yet gentle about it. She was an elderly woman who spoke softly and somehow always cooked meals that matched his tastes with surprising accuracy. She said, "Treat this place like your home. I've lived alone for a long time. It's nice to have company again." That night, Kevin lay on the creaky wooden bed. The ceiling was low, and the dim yellow light of the bedside lamp cast a soft glow over the cracks in the plastered wall. He opened his laptop. The cursor blinked. A blank page. But he didn't write anything. Instead, he looked out the window. Outside, it was pitch black. For a moment, he thought he saw something. 2 dark figures. Probably just my imagination. He closed his eyes. The wind kept blowing. The leaves kept rustling. Nothing more. Chapter 2. Sarah. The Abilene Library sat quietly at the far end of town, tucked beside a faded brick road, with a few small shops selling old things scattered nearby. The air inside was so still that one could hear the sound of pages turning, and the soft sigh of someone fast asleep amidst a towering pile of books. Sarah placed a freshly organized stack onto the shelf, smoothed the hem of her librarian uniform, and turned her head toward the reading corner. She paused for a moment, frowning. A stranger was sprawled across one of the wooden tables, head resting on his arm, surrounded by a mountain of books that had clearly been pulled out but not yet touched. His breathing was steady, hair slightly tousled. He looked like a drifter who had momentarily escaped the world. Sarah walked over and cleared her throat gently. "Excuse me, this is a library, not a hotel." Kevin blinked, startled awake. He looked around, then up at the girl in front of him, her expression unreadable, while his eyes carried a trace of fatigue and apology. I'm sorry. I just closed my eyes for a bit." Sarah crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "A bit? You've been here almost an hour. And this stack of books. Are you planning to read them or build a house?" Kevin looked slightly embarrassed. He quickly adjusted his jacket, his eyes drifting to the small name tag pinned to her chest. "Sarah. I'm a writer. I'm looking for inspiration for a new story." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And you find inspiration by napping on materials other people might need?" Kevin let out a soft sigh and nodded, conceding, "All right. I admit that was a bit rude. I just haven't been sleeping much lately." Sarah didn't say anything else. She quietly gathered a few of the books and walked away. But as she turned her back, the corner of her mouth curved into the faintest smile, barely noticeable. Later that day, Kevin returned to the library. This time, he didn't fall asleep. He actually read. Sarah passed by and paused when she saw him focused on an old newspaper. "Not bad. At least you opened a book." Kevin looked up and gave a tired smirk. "I think that's the first time I've ever been scolded by a librarian." Sarah tilted her head, eyes playful. "Then you haven't been to enough libraries." A short pause. Kevin closed the newspaper, his expression darkening slightly. "Hey, have you ever heard about the 2 kids who went missing in this town?" Sarah nodded, her eyes softening. "Of course. That story's pretty well known. My grandma used to tell me. She said that at night, children shouldn't go outside. Otherwise, they might be taken away forever." Kevin said nothing. He looked out the window, where the last light of day was fading. "I feel like something's not right about this town." Sarah glanced at him, her playful tone gone. "If you're looking for a story for your next novel, this town might be the only one you'll ever want to write about again." Chapter 3. Martha. The small kitchen smelled of apple pie and fresh basil. Kevin sat at the dining table holding a glass of water, his eyes following the gentle movements of Martha, the landlady who was both kind and quietly mysterious. "Eat plenty, dear. Everyone's skinny when they first get here. I call it the city syndrome." Kevin smiled. "Thank you, ma'am. I think I just had a medical checkup without going to the hospital." Martha laughed. A light, crisp sound, but never too loud. She placed a steaming plate of stew in front of him, the aroma rising and wrapping around him with surprising comfort. The kitchen felt so warm. It was like stepping back into a home he had left a long time ago. "Just treat this place like your own, dear. I've gotten used to living alone, but it's still nice to have someone to talk to." Kevin nodded, a brief warmth flickering in his gaze. He didn't say anything, but inside, he felt quietly grateful. After months of drifting, this was the first time he hadn't felt pitied or judged. "Do you have any children or grandchildren?" Martha paused, just for a second, not long enough to raise suspicion, but not so quick as to feel completely natural. "Yes, a son. But he doesn't live here anymore. He's probably about your age now. It's been a while since he last visited." Kevin didn't press further. There was something in her eyes, like a thin layer of dust over an old photograph, that told him it was best to stop there. After dinner, Kevin stepped out onto the porch, leaning against the railing, watching the trees sway gently in the wind. Inside, Martha stood at the sink, slowly washing the dishes, her hands moving as if they remembered every tiny crack in the porcelain. She glanced out the window and saw Kevin's silhouette. A good young man, quiet, didn't ask too many questions, and in the right place, at the right time. She whispered to herself so softly no one could hear. Enjoy the peace, while you still can. Chapter 4. The Drunkard. The house stood alone at the end of a red dirt alley, its tiled roof jagged like the crooked teeth of an old man. In front of the door, a rusted folding chair leaned sideways, a beer bottle lying on the ground beneath it. Martha rang the bell. No response. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. No invitation needed. "I brought you some food." Clattering sounds came from the kitchen. A gaunt man emerged from the shadows. Messy hair, wrinkled shirt, holding a bottle of liquor in one hand. Henry, her older brother. "You again? Didn't you say last time would be the last?" Martha placed the bag on the table without looking at him. "If I didn't bring it, you'd be living off alcohol alone." Henry let out a hoarse laugh like metal snapping. "Alcohol tastes better than your self-righteous pity. So, are you here to deliver kindness or just to check if I'm still alive enough to bury?" Martha sighed, her voice steady. "I'm here out of duty, and a promise, not because you deserve it." Henry squinted, leaning on the table. "A promise, huh? To who? The kids?" The air grew heavy. Both fell silent for a moment. Martha opened the lid of the aluminum pot and laid out a portion of hot stew. "Eat. No matter how much of a bastard you are, don't let your corpse rot on the porch." Henry grabbed the spoon and stirred lazily. His eyes weren't on the food. They stared out the window where the last light of day was fading. "I used to think, if enough time passed, everything would just rot away on its own. But some things, they don't cling because they're alive. They cling because you're the one who ended them." Martha froze, but she said nothing. "You know that better than anyone, don't you?" Henry smirked, his eyes dull, as if seeing something just over his sister's shoulder. "That thing, it never really ends." Martha didn't respond. She quietly packed up the empty bag, turned, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she spoke, without turning around. "If you can't give up the bottle, I won't come back. And next time, you'll die for real, not just dream about dying." The door closed behind her. Henry sat alone in a house half-lit, half-drenched in shadow. He poured another drink into his glass, raised it, but his hand trembled slightly. Outside the window, night had fallen. Chapter 5. The Missing Children. That afternoon, Kevin couldn't write a single word. The turmoil inside him didn't come from the nightmare the night before, nor from the strange chill creeping through the old room, but from the eyes of the child he had seen in that dream. No, it wasn't a dream. It was real. He saw them. 2 children, with eyes black as void, no whites, no reflections, yet somehow they saw through him. Kevin stepped out of the house, wandering along the cobbled road that cut through the town. The sky was clear, the air calm, and only a handful of people moved about, as if all sound had been swallowed at the edge of Abilene. At the intersection, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure, Sarah. The librarian, he still couldn't tell, was warming up to him or just pretending not to hate him. "Sarah!" Kevin called out. She turned, a little surprised. "Oh, it's you. Survived the mountain of books from yesterday?" Kevin chuckled and scratched the back of his head. "Actually, I wanted to apologize. I was a bit of a jerk the other day." Sarah tilted her head, a small, amused smile on her lips. Apology accepted. But just this once. They walked side by side along the sidewalk. Kevin tried to keep the conversation light, but he couldn't hide the curiosity that had been growing inside him. I'm looking for a theme for my next book. Something strange, unsolved. Sarah glanced at him, then looked off toward the distant line of trees. If you're after unsolved stories, this town has one. Kevin stopped in his tracks. Sarah slowed to match his pace. When I was little, my grandmother used to say, "Don't go outside after dark. Kids who do will be taken and never come back." Back then, I thought it was just to scare me. But later I found out 2 children really did go missing. Kevin felt a small ache press against his chest. Missing? Sarah nodded. A pair of twins. I think their family lives somewhere near mine. I don't know much. I wasn't born yet, but my grandmother said the whole town searched for them. For a week, not a trace. And after that? There was no after that. The story just faded. No one ever talked about it again. Kevin fell silent. Memories, or maybe instincts, started piecing themselves together into something unnamed. Do you remember their names? Sarah shook her head. No, but if you want, you can come to the library. I'll try looking it up in the archive. Old newspapers might have something. Kevin nodded. I'd appreciate that. It's not like I have anything better to do, Sarah said with a soft shrug. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of dry leaves. Kevin looked toward the trees. Something was waiting, and he knew. Whatever story he thought he was writing, it wasn't fiction anymore.